Today I am joined by Noah Rubin. Not a lot of fantasy basketball going on at the moment, so we will break down or give our thoughts on the All-Star weekend and then dive into a mid-season industry mock redraft. I don't know what we're calling it. I had nothing better to do, so I reached out to a few people and we started a mock draft. We are three and a bit rounds in, so we will break down the first 3 rounds of that draft and talk about anything else that comes up. This is the industry mid-season mock recap part 1. Let's go, as I bring it up, let's go balls deep.
I'm the type to get shit done. You the type to observe. March Madness on my speakers, but today's November 23rd. Got something loud in the blunt, yeah. I don't say what I want, yeah. Probably somewhere sunny getting tan. Foreign women in the sun, yeah. That's all that I need. That's all that I need. That's all that I need. Got my brothers with me. Got my brothers with me, and my mama's healthy. That's all that I need.
Welcome to the Balls Deep podcast, brought to you by Fantasy Basketball International. I'm Adam King. Find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at AdamKing91. Find us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere and everywhere you consume fantasy basketball content. We are also part of the Old Man Squad at Old Man Squad on Twitter, joined today by Noah Rubin at Noah Rubin22 on, that's the same, isn't it, for you as well, on Blue Sky and Twitter? You're the same username.
I think so. I think I was able to get that worked out. Just the extra bsky.app or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever goes after that. But I think if you just search the username, it pops up.
Yeah.
Somewhere. I don't know. So I thought we'd do a show. I'm stuck at home. Might as well do one. And you were kind enough to squeeze me in. What's been going on? It's been a little bit since I've had you on the show. So what's been happening in the world of Noah Rubin?
Ooh, in the world of Noah Rubin, it's the middle of the NBA season, so the same as ever. A lot of blurbs. Doing the Roto World Basketball Show with Raf and Dan, the Q&A with Raf. That's where a lot of my content comes from, and this All-Star break has been a nice opportunity to kind of relax and not consume as much basketball, not sit here and refresh Twitter all day long waiting for news updates. So that's been kind of nice. I'm excited for a couple more days of that.
Now, you did have to do a little bit of blurbing yesterday and over the last couple of days, I assume, with All-Star festivities. So let's start with the All-Star break. Now, anyone who is on social media has probably read or been bombarded with thoughts and comments from all sorts of people on the positives and the negatives from the All-Star weekend. So let's give our thoughts as brief or as detailed as we want to go into it. Where do we want to start? Well, let's go chronologically. So let's start with the Rising Stars game or format games. What were your thoughts on the Rising Stars? Because I actually don't mind that Rising Stars mini tournament kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up, see if I could find the stats from those games, but actually I'm not able to find those real quick. But those are always fine, good. I mean, it's good to see some of the young guys playing a little bit. But obviously it's not the highlight of or it's not supposed to be the highlight of the weekend.
No.
But a lot of the names that, I mean, we talk about all season long, whether it's Dynasty or just regular fantasy, seeing them play on a bigger stage is always, it's cool.
Yeah, and that's what I like about it. As rookies, I guess they're always, especially the G League guys, but as rookies, I feel like they've got a little bit more to prove. And so I feel like those games are at least somewhat competitive. And just fun to see some of these guys that we don't get to see a lot of. So I don't mind it as a lead-in kind of warm-up game or day or event or whatever. So I don't really have anything good or bad to say about it. I just think it's fine. Moving through to Saturday night with the three-point contest, dunk contest, and skills challenge. I think it's time to get rid of the skills challenge. I mean, I think it's washed, isn't it? I mean, Wemby and Chris Paul came out and tried to rort the system, and then it's just whatever. I really don't care about that skills challenge.
Yeah, I think the way they have it now just isn't quite like. I guess the idea of having teams is kind of fun, but they probably. I mean, when it was just the same thing every year, and it was just about trying to beat the fastest time, and I think that was a little bit of added a little bit of competition to it, because it was like, oh, I don't remember if it was like D Wade or someone else had the record from a couple years before, and it's like, okay, like players every year, it's like, yeah, you can try and win it, but you can also try and break that record. That adds a little bit more fun to it. There was the year where it was the players going against each other, and it just ended up being whoever hit the last 3-pointer first ended up winning it, which was kind of exciting, but also kind of not really a good representation of the skills challenge. But yeah, I think I guess the saying of if you're not cheating, you're not trying, I guess that applies here. But I thought it was kind of lame to try and exploit something in a skills challenge. But I guess if that's what they wanted to do, and apparently they clarified that the rules were allowing that, and so I don't know. It's whatever.
Yeah, whatever. I actually didn't mind when they did the and I can't remember whether this was in place of a skills challenge, but when they had the shooting stars, when they had three, like a veteran, an older player, and then two players, or you could get someone, because now with the WNBA, why not grab someone from
I think it was,
so
a WNBA, a legend, and a current player.
Yeah, I don't mind that. It's quick. It's fun to see legends out there getting shots up. So something like that I think would be fine, because the skills challenge it's really irrelevant, because those skills that they're doing, like the passing, the dribbling, anyone can do that. It's not.
It's a challenge for the average person to do it. For NBA players, you can't call it a skills challenge. It's not a challenging thing.
No, it's a skill they learned when they were 6, and so it's. Yeah, so hopefully they maybe come up with something better, and whatever that is. The 3-point comp, I mean, we don't really need to break that down too much. I think it is what it is. We actually get players that are known to the general public in there. So, and that's because there's no risk of injury. There's no real risk of, I think part of the idea behind the dunk contest and players not wanting to be part of it is because they don't want to embarrass themselves, or they don't want to be showing up. I don't think there's that mindset doesn't exist in the 3-point shootout. Like, if you come out and Norm Powell was in it, he just had an off night. Okay. No one's going to think worse of him or less of him or anything like that. We saw Buddy Hield in the preliminary rounds went off 31 points, and then he lost to Tyler Hero, who sort of had an average round. So I don't think there's any issues with the 3-point shootout. Do you?
Yeah, no, I don't. I think it's just fine the way it is. I mean, I think they've changed a few times, or at least changed it once or twice, like the way that the money balls work. But I mean, that's really it. There's no reason to change it. It's good.
It's good. It works. I do wish that they would extend that, because they have the 2 starry range balls, or whatever they call them now, where they're sort of deeper 3-pointers. They're not that deep. Make them logo distance. They're like a couple of feet outside the 3-point line, but that's average for the league nowadays. That's where players pull up from.
I mean, Steph shot it from half court in the All-Star game. So.
Yeah. So move them back, make them actually challenging for these guys. The dunk contest. So, look, Mac McClung, very impressive 3 times in a row. So, certainly there's an argument that he has carried that All-Star Saturday night for a couple of years. Whether he deserved to win, whether you think Stephon Castle deserved to win, I thought they were both really good. I actually thought Steph Castle did some good dunks, and obviously doesn't have the showmanship I think Mac McClung has at this point, because he's done it. This is his 3rd year. He knows how to work the crowd. He brings in the props. He brings in the car and all of that sort of stuff, which is all part of it nowadays, because you run out of dunks. How many different dunks can players do? But then Buzelis, Andre Jackson last year, like we just seem to be getting players in there that no one really cares about. Do you think we ever get to a point where the superstars, Ja Morant, Zion, I mean, Giannis sort of talked about it, but the Thompson twins, do you think we ever get to a point where they do a dunk contest, or are those days gone?
Well, that was, I guess, a couple of points there. I think Ja Morant tweeted about saying that maybe he wants to do it, tagged Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon. I think Zach LaVine said maybe. I think him and Aaron Gordon are getting a little older. I don't know if I'd want to see modern day Aaron Gordon in the dunk contest as much as in his prime in the dunk contest. But there was a tweet, I guess actually just a full report from Front Office Sports, Ryan Glasspiegel, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, about a couple of the changes that are being discussed for 2026 All-Star Game. They're talking about getting bigger names in the dunk contest, which we'll talk about this point here probably in a few minutes. They're going to start the All-Star Game a little bit earlier because the first game started at about 8:30 at night, my time in Eastern time, which, it probably should have been a little earlier because a lot of people aren't going to necessarily stay up that late. And I guess that would also be just like middle of the night in Europe, so nobody would watch it there either. And they talked about adding the one-on-one tournament. So I think that's all speculation and reports at this point. I think that would make things a little bit better. I brought that up to mention the dunk contest thing because I think having those bigger names would make people care a little bit more because, I mean, frankly, Mac McClung, the idea of that I think has been tossed around the last 5-10 years about, oh, you want to make the dunk contest good? Like, let's just get professional dunkers because, this is what they do. That's basically what they do with Mac McClung. They call him up every year to make the dunk contest good. He's like, respectfully, he's a G League player. But they call him up. He's basically a pro dunker. So that's cool. But I think what gives it kind of the aura that it had in, from like, I guess the start of it until probably like 2015, 2016. I think there's been a couple since then that have been good, but it's having stars or the players that are widely considered like the most athletic in the league doing it. Because I remember it was like JaVale McGee wasn't some star by any means, but he was very exciting in the dunk contest whenever he was in it. So they do need to get bigger names. Hopefully it'll happen. But
I'm skeptical whether they will. I know they talk the talk, and I'm thinking about it. But let's see what happens next year. In my mind, I sort of go to a place where I think if we were to bring in those professional dunkers like Jordan Kilganon to be in the dunk contest, obviously it would be very spectacular in terms of the dunks that they do, because I follow them on Instagram. You see the dunks they do. They're pretty phenomenal. And I think, okay, would that then make these NBA stars sort of wanting to protect the brand a bit? Would they come in and say, well, hang on, I'm as good as you? Or would they say, I'm not going to put my reputation up against a professional dunker, and it actually gets worse? So, and I don't know. The idea of the one-on-one tournament that you mentioned, a few players were interviewed after the All-Star game and indicated they'd be interested in something like that. Now, again, it's all well and good to say it now, a year out, but when it came to it, if they said, okay, we're going to do this, are all of these guys willing to it's not putting their reputation on the line, but it is on a national or on a global sort of platform here. One of these guys like Giannis comes in and is he prepared to put his name up against Damian Lillard or Steph Curry or whoever in a one-on-one? Do they think that would hurt their reputation? I honestly, again, I don't think it would, but what is their opinion? I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I think it would have to be pretty selective one-on-one matchups for it to be really, really entertaining. And like, what's the standard to be in this one-on-one tournament? Are they getting stars to participate? Is it just whoever makes the All-Star team participates, or is it anyone? There was literally a video earlier that Cam Reddish had posted on his Instagram of him going one-on-one against Lakers players. And it's like, he's just insanely good one-on-one. And you would probably have some of these guys that are more role players that are actually having a lot of success in this one-on-one tournament just because it's one-on-one, not 5-on-5, and it's just a different game. So maybe that's something where it's like there are players that are just better suited for 5-on-5 than one-on-one, probably.
Yeah.
And so maybe there's a couple guys that don't want to do it because of that. Now do you want to see like centers go against each other, point guards go against each other, or do you kind of want to see them like a point guard versus a center? Like, would that be fun? I don't really know exactly how it works. Would it be totally random, or would they try and stage certain matchups? Like, would you get, assuming health, Jokic versus Embiid? Would you get like Steph versus Kyrie, LeBron versus KD? Are you getting those kinds of matchups, or are you getting, random matchups or role players that, while they're incredible one-on-one players and it would be fun to watch, I think a lot of people are watching for the stars.
Yeah, they are, and you're right. Like there'd be a lot of cogs to move into place for this to happen, because they'd have to figure out what does the format look like. I think obviously we want to get those big names. We want Giannis, we want Jokic, we want Wemby, all these guys participating. But I actually think even if they did it where the teams, maybe every team in the league gets to nominate one player or nominate two players, and you do a tournament over the 3 days. So you start with 60 players and you whittle it down to a final 8 for the last day, or something like a King of the Ring tournament in the wrestling where you have lead in. And the teams, obviously, they would have discussions with the players, who is interested, who is not. But I think people would watch it, even if it was someone like like for the Hawks, the obvious ones would be, I don't know, Trae Young and Jalen Johnson or something. Vit Krejci, of course. Why not get Dyson Daniels in there? Like, well, I don't think it needs to be these top-level stars. As you said, I think some players are just built for one-on-one. And like, honestly, I'd watch it even if it was Cam Reddish. You said that he put stuff up on his
We would,
thing.
yeah.
We would.
But maybe not the casual fan. I think that's probably what they're going to
and that's the issue, I suppose, there is. But would there then be that team loyalty? Like if you're a fan of the Knicks and they throw in Miles McBride, are you just going to watch it to see how he goes representing the Knicks kind of thing? I don't know. Anyway,
that's a really good point. As someone that really loves Cam Reddish, if he was in that, I would absolutely be, watching every play of it. But then also if it was like a Vit Krejci or just some like, random role player, I'd be like, absolutely 100% rooting extra hard, hoping that they make it all the way. So maybe, that would be a cool thing, I think, for fans that are actually fans of the team. But there's a lot of things they can do there, but I think they want to, reach more casual fans to make money as opposed to creating a good product.
And that's where we get into All-Star Sunday night, where we can talk about
what a segue.
What a segue. Perfect. Trying to lure in those, I guess, fans that aren't necessarily as locked in as us, which a lot of people aren't. But Kevin Hart, like for me, I guess let's start with the product itself in terms of the games. So the 3 games that they had, to me, felt like they were way too quick. They went for about 10 minutes per game. We got to see players for 5 minutes. So to me, the concept, I didn't mind it. I didn't mind that they wanted to try and move away from however long an all-star game is, an hour and a half, 2 hours of just no defense, players just shooting threes. They wanted to try something else. I didn't mind the format. I thought having the rookies in there was probably not. Again, I don't mind the idea of it. I don't think it worked too well. I listened to Dan Titus. He was on, I think it was on the Kevin O'Connor podcast or something that he was on. I was watching that last night. And they sort of floated the idea of having the 4th team as the snub, the all-star snub team. That, I think, would work because you would get Trae Young, he was obviously picked eventually, but he was a snub, or he viewed himself as a snub. Sabonis, LaMelo Ball, get a team of those guys together, and I can almost guarantee that they would come in and play
motivated,
because they would want to prove that, hey, I didn't get picked, I'm better than these guys. But it needs to be first to, I don't know, 60 or something, a little bit more to get them a bit more court time. So the concept, I didn't mind it. I think they could tweak it and make it better. But it was all of the other crap that was going on. People have obviously come out since and said there was 32 minutes of gameplay and 2.5 hours of ads and Kevin Hart and interviews and that sort of thing. I guess, what are your overarching thoughts of both the concept and then the whole performance?
Yeah, I thought the games were definitely more competitive than I guess the last however many years of the All-Star game. So that was cool to be able to see them play. I mean, they weren't still like playing super, super hard. I think kind of at the end of games they probably were, but it was more competitive than it has been. That was great. I think the idea of like a snub team makes sense, or they just expand the All-Star rosters.
Yeah.
It's been at 24 players since it was introduced, and I think there was like, I don't know, it was like 12 teams at the time that was introduced, or 14 teams. It was like, they've expanded to 30 and they haven't expanded rosters for the All-Star game at all. So like NBA teams typically carry like around like 14 players. I think they can have 14 players active, something like that. It's like, why not just bump it up? I mean, you can even expand it past that. Just make it 16 players per conference. And then you have 4 teams of 8 right there. And like, just do that. So like, that makes sense. I think the complaint about, I think Draymond Green was one of the most vocal about it being bad, having the Rising Stars guys out there. And like, I think the idea of it to make it more competitive was fine, but it was very weird because it's like, is that an All-Star appearance for them? Like, no, but they're playing in the All-Star game. Like, it was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But I think also just the players that lost from Team Kenny that were nominated to the All-Star game, made the All-Star game, played a 12-minute game, didn't get to go up against LeBron, KD, Steph, like all of these like legends at the game, which they got to play against some superstars, but they didn't get to go against the legends that they maybe grew up watching. Like guys like, it's like Tyler Hero's first All-Star game. He didn't get to go up against those guys. So it was like kind of weird. And like, what was the honor even worth for, probably a pretty extensive warm up and then just playing a 12-minute game? That was kind of weird. But yeah, the extra stuff that was going on was, I don't know. The musical performances were cool. The thing with Mr. Beast, like as soon as I saw him walk out, I was like, oh gosh, like what are they going to do? I thought it ended up actually being kind of entertaining, seeing if that random guy could make a 1-3 before Dame could, and him getting money. Like that was kind of cool. But it was the other stuff that was taking away from the game. And I think also the production issue of it, just like when things happened was just so weird. Like the fact that it was a timeout called and then they just gifted the TNT, like inside the NBA crew, all these gifts and like showered them. Like, guys, we're in a timeout. Like you could see the players stretching because they were just trying to stay loose in the middle of their All-Star game. And they took this time to celebrate this crew. It's like, it's just kind of weird. I was just like, we talked about, you mentioned this at the beginning, I was blurbing the games and I was like, okay, great. The last one starts at 10. I'm going to be in bed by 11. Nope. Everything started late, which I should have been, prepared for. That's just the way that the NBA works. But then also the extra stuff, just getting like stoppages and let's just go to a commercial and then come back and do a 10-minute presentation and then go to commercial again. And then we'll go play basketball again. It's like, oh, great. But yeah, basketball, good. Other stuff, bad. I wish there would have been more basketball.
Yeah, I think that's what we all think. And yeah, the interviews that they had just seemed awkward and pointless, and the players didn't want to be there. They kept the focus on the TNT guys and Kevin Hart for so long. And like, I know me personally, I think that Chuck and Shaq and that are a bit of an embarrassment. Not an embarrassment to the NBA, but when you watch them they do their halftime shows, that sort of thing, it is so obvious that they don't watch certain teams and they don't stay up to date. They don't know players' names. And I mean, I guess that's coming from someone like you or me. We have to know a lot about everything that's going on in the league. My expectation is that if you're being paid millions of dollars to do that as a job, you should do the groundwork and know who you're talking about and what you're talking about. So just to have the focus on them on a day when it should be about the players was just ridiculous. And I had it on because I was home and I had no other choice really, but it wasn't enjoyable at all. And as we saw on Twitter, I think a lot of people felt the same. So hopefully they walk away from this with some knowledge and some learnings going into next year that, we probably need to focus a bit more on the basketball.
And I think it's not going to be TNT anymore, which is why they were celebrating them so much. Because it was their last All-Star game. So I believe it's NBC that will be taking over those rights. So hopefully they took note, whoever needs to be taking notes, took note of every single tweet that was negative about it and said, hey guys, as long as we hit these points right here, everybody's going to love year one of us hosting the All-Star game and like just being back in production for the NBA, because it's like we listened to everything that everybody complained about and we prioritized the players in the game. And I think they do that. Like everybody's going to notice the drastic difference so much. It's going to be great.
I think so. I think if it's pretty much as simple as whoever was doing the research for next year from NBC just writes down, do the opposite of what they did. We'll
Not
be fine.
That. All right, I'm done.
Like a 2-minute job, and then just let Twitter or social media tell you what not to do. It's not complicated, but all right. Anyway, that's All-Star break. Let's get into a draft. So I get asked a lot, and on your mailbag show and on all my shows, your shows, we get asked, where do we view certain players for the rest of the season? Who has the more value? Is it player A or player B? So I just thought, well, let's just do a draft, and that will give people an indication of where now, obviously, this is 12 individual opinions. It's 12 people drafting. We don't all have the same thoughts about the same players. So it's not a one-stop shop kind of thing. Like, look at this. Oh, this player was drafted. Everyone thinks this. But I think it's still a good exercise. And we had a week with no fantasy, so it gives us a few days to bang out a draft. So it is a slow draft, 12-team, 9-cat, standard settings, third-round reversal. Let's start with the first round. So you are drafting at pick 5. I'm drafting at pick 11. So we'll work through. I mean, some people won't be watching this on the screen. They'll be listening along. So for those of you, I'll just work through the picks chronologically. So Wemby went at 1. So let's start. Let's go through who's drafting. Just give them a shout out. So we've got Karan Talwar drafting at 1. Kayla Fonte, Yuri, who is Kayla's co-host on the Bitches Be Ballin' podcast. Scott Keller, yourself, Chad Simpson, DMAC, NBA Fantasy Bible, Raphael Johnson, Alex Barutha, Mike Barner, myself, and Steve St. Pierre. So we've got both guys from the Menace Podman in here as well. So Karan had the first pick. He went with Wemby. Jokic went at number 2. Shea went at number 3. So not a lot has changed in terms of our top 3. Are you happy with Wemby at 1, or have you got some concerns down the stretch that Jokic might be a better option?
I mean, I think that if I were picking one, I would go Jokic. But I think you could probably make a case for any of those top 3 to go number 1. And this is like, since it's a mock, I'm not sure exactly how everybody's approaching things, like how detailed they're looking ahead at the schedule, how much they're going to lean into a specific build. I'm not really. I probably could spend a little more time looking ahead at the schedule, but I'm not really looking to do any sort of punt build. But if Curran wanted to go with Wemby, and I mean, looking at his next few picks, getting Jaren Jackson, Kristaps Porzingis, like, and LaMelo in there too, like, his blocks are going to be pretty solid there. So maybe that was a strategy that he wanted to see what kind of team he could build around Wemby. But I mean, I probably would have gone Jokic, but no issue with Wemby going 1.
So we had, I guess, the first surprise. I suppose we could call him a surprise. Karl Anthony Towns went at pick 4 to Scott Keller, followed by Jason Tatum to you. I don't think we need to talk about Tatum too much because he's very safe in that range. Mm-hmm. He's going to play a lot of games. His floor is really high. So there's no risk sort of taking him. Is he per game going to be the 5th best player? Maybe not. But what worst case, he's going to be like 9th. Durability, all of that sort of stuff. I mean, have you got any thoughts on Tatum, or it's fairly obvious?
Yeah, it was just a kind of a safe pick. Didn't really have anybody else I felt too strongly about taking there. So I just went with the safe, well-rounded pick.
And Cat at 4. Is that too high for him? Because I picked at 11 and I was, without having looked who had been picked before me, I was thinking, I don't mind taking Cat here at the end of the first round. And then I went, oh, crap, he went at pick 4. So to me, initially that felt a little bit early. But do you think it is? Like, are you okay with Cat at 4?
I'm fine with it. He's on Basketball Monster 5th this season in 9 cap value. The 4 players in front of him are the top 3 that were drafted, and then Anthony Davis, who, I mean, obviously he's going to be out for at least a month. Yeah. So I think that it's a fine pick. Honestly, if I were picking 4, I don't know who I would have taken. Is like looking at the next handful of players that we're taking. Like, do I feel really good about any of them being the 4th best player for the rest of the season? Really? So I think it's fine. I think there's a handful of guys that you probably could have taken in that pick, and it had been a good pick.
So after Tatum, we went with Tyrese Halliburton, Luka Doncic, Tyrese Maxey, Giannis, Anthony Edwards, Kyrie Irving, and Damian Lillard. Now, the Halliburton pick got a few people made some comments on Twitter about that pick. I sort of looked at it and I thought, yeah, look, it is high. And that's just understanding that Halliburton's had a pretty rough season. But again, floor is pretty safe. He's going to play. Well, assuming he stays healthy, he's going to play because the Pacers are in that bucket of teams that just need to keep winning. I don't know. Is this too high for you for Halliburton? Would you rather have gone with Luka or Giannis or any of those names? Or is this a situation, like you said, with Cat, where you're not really comfortable taking a risk on any of those guys, so you sort of go the safer option with Halliburton?
I think that Halliburton is fine here. I think that you could probably make a case for the next 3 players to say you'd rather have them, but like, I don't feel super, super confident about that because, I mean, Luka's just getting healthy. Like, hopefully he comes out and is Luka. And if he is, then you probably want to take him at 4, but that hasn't been the case yet. So like, we'll just keep an eye on that. Maxey's been great. Giannis is Giannis, but he's out for a couple weeks because I considered him at 5, but I was like, and if I'm really drafting right now, like, do I really want to start off my first round pick with this guy that's going to miss some time that early? So I was like, I didn't want to do that. But I think Halliburton's fine here. I think he got off to a really slow start to the year. And I think when he has a bad game, it's like a very loud bad game. Like he's not just going to, have like an off night and have, only 10 points and, a couple like he has a dud. If he has a dud, it's like, it's bad. Like he had that 0-point game just 2 weeks ago in Portland. And I think there was, another 0-point game earlier this season against the Knicks, game number 2. And immediately those things are like very big red flags. I think he's obviously not what he was last year, but on Basketball Monster past 2 months, he's 11th in 9 cap because there aren't many players that can get as many assists without turning the ball over as Halliburton. So yeah, he's been bad this season, but I don't think he's been so dramatically worse than we were expecting, despite a couple of really bad stretches that like it's unrealistic to take him in the first round, like even at pick 6.
Yeah, I agree. I think for the season, he is a borderline first round player, and as you said, most of us would consider this a bad season. But a lot of it just comes down to, I think, the shooting percentages. If he can get back up to 47, 48%, his numbers bump up to close to what they were last year. The steals are sort of where they were last year as well, and so I'm okay with this. I'm not. Would I have rather, if I was picking there, would I have taken him? Probably not. I probably would have gone Luka, but I think it's fine. So Luka at 7, I'm fine with. Giannis at 9, I'm fine with. Raphael Johnson went with Maxey. He likes a bit of Tyrese Maxey. I think that's okay because I'm obviously not of the opinion that Embiid is going to play a lot down the stretch. Paul George may not come back from his holiday. Who knows? He might just stay on holiday for the rest of the year. So I think Maxey, assuming that he plays and the Sixers don't just throw in the towel and shut him down or do anything like that, I think Maxey is okay. I went with Kyrie at 11. I'm pretty happy to get him there. They're not going to have a center for at least a month.
That's true.
There have been some shoulder things going on where he's sat some back-to-backs and that sort of thing. But I think you could make a case for not any, but a lot of these players missing a few games here and there. So I'm not too worried about Kyrie there. And he's been very good all season, really. Lillard goes at 12 to end the first round. And then coming back for the second round, Steve St. Pierre was on the turn there. He picked Steph Curry. I went with Cade Cunningham. Then we had Sabonis, Trae Young, Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, Scotty Barnes. You went with Kevin Durant, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Devin Booker, Jaren Jackson. We don't really need to talk about Curry. I mean, Curry's Curry. Cade, a part of this was just me thinking Detroit they're currently 6th in the East. They would love to get a playoff spot and avoid that play-in tournament, and Cade's going to have to play for them to do that. Thoughts on Cade? I'm fine with it, but I do like me a bit of Cade as well.
Yeah, no, I love Cade. I think he's been awesome this season, finally having his breakout year. And yeah, I think this is totally fine to take him here. And I think combining him with Kyrie was a pretty good start to your draft.
Yeah, once again, I've lent into a punt, as we'll see with my next pick. I just can't help myself. I went into it and I thought, I'm just going to draft best player available here. I'm not going to punt. And then three
then
rounds.
All of a sudden, you're punting 7 categories just because you can.
I'm already punting. Sabonis, Trae, Donovan Mitchell, James Harden. I mean, they're all fine. I don't think we really need to talk about any of these picks through this sort of middle of the second round until we get to Yuri's pick. So Yuri went with Josh Hart at pick 22. Now, Hart's been very good this year. We no arguments, I don't think, there from any of us. Just pulling up his numbers for the season. Okay, where is he? All right, so for the season, he is the 14th ranked player in 9-cat. 14.5 points, 9.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 1.5 steals, 1-3, efficient from the line, efficient from the field. I guess the question here is this sustainable? Because if it is, then this pick is fine. What are your thoughts on Josh Hart moving forward?
I mean, I think he's going to continue to be really good. I think, it's an interesting fit having gone SGA in the first round, who's the leading scorer in the NBA, with Josh Hart, probably fits a little bit better with a punt points build. But I think that taking Hart in the second round is like you said, if he keeps up this level of play, then it's a good pick. I have a little bit of, I still think he'll be very good, but it's like he has been shooting just incredibly well this year. Like the field goal percentage has taken a major leap. And it's like, if that drops a couple points over the final 2 months, like, what does that do to his value? But I mean, we know Tibbs is going to play him. Like he's not coming off the floor, so he'll have an opportunity to get some stats.
Yeah, I think obviously, yes, he's playing well. Knicks are playing well. The addition of Karl Anthony Towns has obviously really helped this team in terms of their starting five, and Cat's playing arguably the best basketball he's ever played. I mean, he was very good in Minnesota for a couple of years there, but I actually, if you watch them play, the addition of Karl Anthony Towns, I think, has helped Hart a lot, because Hart gets so many wide open baskets in that dunker spot.
Yeah.
And that's purely from running the offense or having Cat as an option as a high facilitator. Yeah, I think he, in a game, I can't think what game, the game where he got 30 and 10, I think, and Cat got 40 and 10 or something like that 2 games ago. Half of Josh Hart's baskets were just wide open layups on the baseline, and they were all just simple plays. So, yeah, his efficiency is up, but he's getting so many good looks. So, I don't know. We'll see how he goes, but I don't mind this. It seems, if you were just to look at this and you'd go, really, Josh Hart in the second round? But he's been that good. And as you said, Tibbs is going to play him 40 minutes a night until his legs fall off. So the minutes are there. Devin Booker, Jaren Jackson, they're fine as well.
Yeah.
LaMelo Ball, no, sorry, he didn't go. It was a third-round reversal, so we need to jump back to the other end of the draft board. Chet Holmgren went with pick 25. Any thoughts on Chet there? Are you happy to take a flyer on Chet at the start of the second round, given the season that he's, hasn't had, the season he's missed, I suppose?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was pretty good. I mean, when he plays, I think that he's definitely closer to a first-round guy than a third-round guy. And he's only played 3 games since returning from his injury. Hopefully, I think, OKC does have a back-to-back pretty quickly after they return from the All-Star break, but those should be the only games that he misses. He played 30 minutes in that last game before the All-Star break. So if he can just play every game aside from back-to-backs and play 30-plus minutes, then I think third-round value's excellent here.
Now, I went with Trey Murphy at pick 26, which, again, a little bit like Josh Hart. This is to the casual fan, I suppose, if you don't know about fantasy and production and whatever, you'd look at it and go, really, Trey Murphy's not that good. He's been very good for the Pelicans. He's benefited from injuries to other players. For once, it's usually him that's injured, but he's been pretty healthy. He's been top. I want to say he's been a first rounder for a sizable portion of the last 1 to 2 months. I'll just bring up his numbers as well. Let's have a look. Trey Murphy. So, so the last month, he's the 9th ranked player. The last 2 months, he's the 7th ranked player. Now, obviously, a lot of this comes from, not a lot of it, but a portion of it comes from low turnovers for such a high usage player. But he he doesn't really hurt you across the board. And this is the player that we've thought he could be. He's a good scorer, decent rebounder. He can get some assists. I think the assists have been a little bit surprising. He's a good defender, efficient from the field and the line. And that's what he's doing. He's just putting up numbers across the board. Hopefully the Pelicans have realized how important he is to this team. But what are your thoughts on Murphy rest of season? Can he continue to be a top 20 player?
My only concern about Trey Murphy rest of season is that the Pelicans are awful.
Yep.
And that they currently have the second best lottery odds. And what is their opinion on Trey Murphy? Is it, hey, let's just see, because he's playing incredibly well, let's just get him some momentum going into next season. It doesn't really matter who we play. We haven't been winning regardless of who's on the floor. Let's just let Trey Murphy play. Let Zion play every once in a while. And CJ McCollum continue to build your trade value. And let's go get a top, 5 pick or whatever. Or is it, guys, we need to really make sure we get the best lottery odds we can. Let's shut Trey Murphy down middle of March, or is it early April, or is it, hey, we're a week after the All-Star break, he twisted his ankle, and this is probably something he could play through, but there's no reason for him to play through it. Let's just rest him. Let's not get this thing any worse. So it's hard to say at this point. I know you mentioned it earlier, or I guess just like a minute or two ago, that it's usually him that's hurt. So they will, I would assume, be a little bit more cautious with him. But if he's on the floor, this is going to be he's going to continue to ball out. He's been fantastic. I'm very excited to see what he does second half of the season. Hopefully he's able to play a lot.
Yeah, and that's my concern as well, is the fact that the Pelicans are very bad. And working in our favor is the fact that he has been playing and they are still very bad. So they're not, by having him out there, it's not making them win games or anything like that. So fingers crossed he can play majority of the rest of the season. I would say the final week or something like that. As with a lot of these players, he won't play. But in terms of fantasy purposes, I'd like to think that they'll keep him out there. Şengün was next, followed by Jalen Williams, Evan Mobley, LeBron James, Desmond Bane. You went with De'Aaron Fox with your third-round pick, Franz Wagner, Ivica Zubac, Nikola Vucevic, and LaMelo Ball. Any players stand out to you there in that third round as out of place or too high, too low, anything like that?
I think a lot of the guys that I was hoping would fall to me didn't. I think that 4-pick run of Trey Murphy, Alperen Şengün, Jalen Williams, and Evan Mobley really hurt. Thank goodness this was just a mid-season mock. But then LaMelo Ball at the end, I think it's such a big question mark how healthy he'll be. The ankles continue to be an issue for him. And now that the Hornets are pretty far out of the play-in picture, and they don't have Brandon Miller rest of the season, and Mark Williams question mark, what's going on there? How much does LaMelo play? How careful are they with him? It seems like every time he comes back, just some random ankle injury keeps him out for another couple games. So I actually just traded him away last night in my home dynasty league, just because I was I need a safer investment down the stretch of this season. So I think if he is healthy, getting him at the end of the third round is obviously incredible value. But at the same time, given the risk, I think it's fine taking him at the end of the third round because, if he has ankle injuries, then it's just
yeah,
it's LaMelo.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't mind it. I considered him up there at the start of the third round, but I really just wanted to take Trey Murphy as a fun pick. And I know Raf was a bit annoyed as well. He had his eye on him. So, that was sort of just a bit of fun there. Now, we are into the fourth round of this draft. Won't go through the picks because I might do that on another show, but you're actually on the clock with your fourth round pick. So far you've gone Tatum, Kevin Durant, De'Aaron Fox. So let's do your pick. You've had 2 and a bit hours to come up with a decision. So talk us through, I guess, what you'd be thinking here in terms of, have you got a build in mind, or are you just looking at best player available?
I spent about 2 hours frustrated that Dyson Daniels wasn't there for me, which I think, just looking at who's in this league, probably half the league was pretty pissed that Dyson Daniels got taken, but he has to go to somebody. So shout out to Yuri for.
I can undo the picks.
Actually, let's just do that real quick. Just just see what everybody says.
I'll give Yuri Cam Reddish, and I'll give.
All right. No. That's my late round flyer, Kingy.
Right. Okay. I won't do that then.
No, but a couple of the guys that I was definitely or had in my queue, I had LaMelo in my queue, thought about him late with my third round pick when I went Fox. He didn't make it back around. I liked both Daniels, and I know you said you're going to talk about the picks later on. We won't go into detail, but Dyson Daniels and Tyler Hero, the last two picks before me, would have loved to have both of them. I'm between two, but I think I'm going to go with, since we're recording a show, I'm not going to go with the lame, boring, injury-prone player. I'm going to go with the youthful, fun, exciting player, and I'm going to select, let load up there on your screen, Amen Thompson. who has been unreal since he moved into the starting lineup. Jabari Smith is not far from being back. I think that they said as soon as he is able to participate in contact practice, like he's going to be able to play shortly after, and that could happen during the All-Star break. So nothing has happened yet. I haven't seen any reports on that, but I don't think it'll be too long before he's back. But it would be very strange if Amen Thompson was benched at this point. I think there would be a lot of fantasy managers sending, emails and tweets and maybe handwritten letters to the Houston Rockets organization if Amen Thompson was benched for Jabari Smith. But I'm very excited about what he's going to do for the rest of the season. So, yeah, I'm not looking at team build here. I think that, and if everybody else is, that's totally fine. But I was looking at it as if somebody wants to look at this as like ADP data. Yeah. There are certain players that would probably go earlier or later based on team build, but I'm just going to keep going best player available. Plus, it's a little bit less stress on my mind on how some of these categories are going to fit together. And I can just be like, I like him. He plays basketball, fun, good things, draft.
Yeah. And I think that's okay there. There's obviously some question marks or some questions about his fit once Van Fleet and Jabari Smith are back, but let's hope common sense prevails and Amen Thompson plays at least 30 minutes a night. We will see, but obviously, he's been very good from a fantasy perspective this year. And that'll do. We've gone through the first 3 rounds. I'll probably do another show in a couple of days where I'll go through either the rest of the draft or the next 3 or 4 rounds, something like that. Whatever fits in with my schedule of sitting on the couch, I'll manage. What's coming up for you? I know as you alluded to earlier, we've got a couple of days, not off, but a couple of days with less work. What's on the agenda, though, I guess, once we're back into basketball?
Yeah, still the Q&A and podcasts with Raph, and then with Raph and Dan, Tuesdays and Wednesdays every week. So we'll do more of those. I am working on updated Dynasty rankings. It'll hopefully be out within the next week or 2. And then I think that they will be on the Roto World site, and I will be updating that consistently as opposed to doing a ranking and then like a few months, 6 months, sometimes a year later being like, hey, here's another one. I'm going to actually maintain this one. I think that's the plan. I think Raph is publishing a roundtable column from the Roto World writers tomorrow about just some a couple second half of the season topics. But yeah, I think then it'll be 2 more months of hardcore blurbs and then some more fun off-season /playoff / draft content coming up.
Yeah, business as usual for all of us. You can check out Noah, all of his stuff. Just go and find him on Twitter and Blue Sky at Noah Rubin 22. Thank you for coming on the show. I'll let you go and do whatever you've got planned for the rest of the evening, and I will go back to my couch. Yes, I'll be back with daily shows once the games start up again, which is Thursday. I think is Thursday or Wednesday.
There's a Wednesday night. Yeah,
Lakers,
it's the Dalton Connect Bowl or the Mark Williams Bowl, depending on how you look at it.
Whichever way. Yeah. So one game Wednesday, and
the Cam Reddish Bowl. There we go. Final name.
Cam Reddish Bowl. Let's go Cam Reddish Bowl. Or the unprotected draft pick bowl or whatever that. 2031 first round pick. I don't know what it was.
Yes, that's what it is.
Anyway, one game, and then Thursday we're sort of back into multiple games and back into our normal slate. So, yes, I'll have Noah on again at some point. I'll be back doing my daily shows and articles and that sort of thing. And that will do for today. If you're listening, if you're watching, please go and download. Please go and like and subscribe and do all of that stuff. I'm Adam King. He is Noah Rubin. This has been the Balls Deep podcast. Until next time, catch ya.
You just listened to another episode from the Fantasy Basketball International Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us. And for more information about joining our community,